Tonight, we bring you developments that should send chills down every American's spine. NATO, the bastion of globalist warmongering, is actively preparing for World War III. We have the documents revealing Operation Deutschland, Germany's 800,000 troop war plan against Russia. But here's what's truly terrifying. The Biden administration is actually considering giving nuclear weapons to Ukraine. Yes, nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, Putin has unveiled what he calls an uninterceptable weapon, and Russia's threatening to strike major Western cities. The pieces are being moved into place for a catastrophic confrontation, and the timing couldn't be more suspicious. And Patriots, while NATO pushes us towards global conflict, there is another war that is being waged against your testosterone levels. The deep state wants weak men who won't resist their agenda, but Sculpt Nation's Test Boost Max is fighting back with 8 powerful natural ingredients that helps you reclaim your masculine potential. Don't let their chemical warfare destroy your vitality. Join the millions of American men taking back control with Test Boost Max. Head to sculptnation.com/NNN and save up to 51% off your first order and take a stand against their war on masculinity. Okay, so just a few hours ago, this was posted, and it's very important for us to recognize what is actually happening. The former Polish minister has declared at least half of all U.S. aid was laundered by Ukrainians and much given to Democrats. Kiev laundered money to the Democrats, taking a cut of what was left. Kiev laundered money for the Democrats, taking a cut of what was left over. Petro Kolpa has claimed President Biden meets with Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky at the White House. Ukraine did not receive as much foreign aid as claimed by the administration of U.S. President Biden, and whatever help it did get was largely embezzled, a former Polish deputy minister has claimed. Up to half the funds that reached Kyiv was stolen by Ukrainian officials. That's what he has alleged. U.S. aid programs are a mechanism to write off large sums of money that finance shady systems under the Democrat Party's control. That's what he alleged. The incoming Trump administration could review government finances and discover the truth that Ukraine got very little compared to the amount mentioned in public statements. That is what Kolpa has claimed. Remember when Donald Trump was asking about what's going on in Ukraine? Oh, they ran after him. They tried to impeach him over the perfect phone call. And now we have this. 4 hours ago, the U.S. wants to arm Ukraine with nukes before Biden leaves. In a jaw-dropping twist, Biden officials are reportedly seriously considering nuclear weapons, giving them to Ukraine. Yes, nukes in Ukraine. Of course, Putin is not going to be happy with that. Desperate to tip the scales against Russia before Trump takes office in January, the administration is ramping up efforts to arm Ukraine, including recently authorizing long-range missiles capable of striking deep into Russian territory. We've been covering that. And now they're floating the idea of returning nuclear arms removed after the Soviet Union's fall. This unprecedented escalation raises serious questions. Is this about aiding Ukraine or something more? And of course, Zero Hedge broke this story, and it is now getting some traction. 4 days ago, Russia threatened to attack a new U.S. base in Poland with advanced weapons. I wonder why. Well, it's because we armed Ukraine with long-range weapons. Vladimir Putin came out and said, if you aid in those attacks using those weapons, I will consider it attack by those countries. Because he knows the infrastructure required for those weapons to be used. The satellites, the computer, all the infrastructure. It's not like you got Ukrainians sitting in a bunker who are helping aid these missiles. You have willing partners in NATO that are assisting in these missile launches. Putin sees that and says, no, we're not playing that game. This is not a proxy war anymore. And that's why he's now considering targeting Poland, these U.S. bases in Poland. At the same time, Europe is preparing for World War III. Secret documents reveal Germany has begun making plans for the deployment of 800,000 troops in case Russia invades NATO. A 1,000-page war scenario has been planned called Operation Deutschland. Now, what's interesting is that this specific post from several days ago did get a reader note. that Germany's plan is not new and covers everything from homeland security to national defense for NATO due to its location, the heart of Europe. It also covers the logistics and deployment of transit of allied units through Germany in the event of conflict. Oh, 3 days ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin says our new weapon can't be intercepted and no one else has a weapon like this. All this is happening 5 hours ago. Russia makes a power move with Taliban talks. Oh, okay, so we pull out of Afghanistan in a complete disaster, leaving a power vacuum as well as all of our weapons there. All of our weapons that are now being retrofitted. And what does Putin decide to do? He goes to hang out with the Taliban. Well, with the U.S. out of the picture, Russia is asserting itself as the dominant power shaping Afghan's future, while the West watches from the sidelines. Sergei Shoigu, Russia's Security Council chief, held 4 rounds of negotiation with Taliban leaders in Kabul in a display of Moscow's growing influence in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, seen as a strategic hub in Central Asia, was critical to U.S. counterterrorism efforts, but critics argue the chaotic withdrawal left the region open to rivals like Russia. That's just what I just said. This is a clear message. Afghanistan is now under Moscow's sphere of influence. Thanks, Joe. We did it, Joe. Yeah. This is what happens when you have idiots running the country. Red Hat Minion says the satanic deep state cabal is in disarray, desperate because Trump is about to end them. That's why they're trying their hardest to drag U.S. or NATO into a full-blown World War III. Trump knows this. Putin knows this. Zelensky knows this. Peace negotiations is the kryptonite, and that's what we should be doing. We should be praying for peace. We're keeping an eye on everything for you guys, tracking all these things, but at the end of the day, always pray for peace. 6 hours ago, top NATO military chair warns business leaders to prepare for wartime scenario, according to New York Post. Oh, we've got the video. You want to see it? Here's the guy. This is the guy right here. Preemptive strike against Russia should be considered, NATO Military Committee Chairman says. A preemptive strike? These people are going to kill everyone. Here's the video. Here he is.
Over the past 2.5 years, I've been going around boardrooms, finance conferences, and even philanthropic institutions in Europe and America to persuade people to think about 2 questions. One, is my company or organization ready for war? And 2, what can my company or organization do to prevent war? Now, that last question might surprise some people, but if we can make sure that all crucial services and goods can be delivered no matter what, then that is a key part of our deterrence. Deterrence is much wider than the military alone. When it comes to great power competition, all instruments of power can and will be used. We're seeing that with the growing number of sabotage acts, and Europe has seen that with energy supply. We thought we had a deal with Gazprom, but we actually had a deal with Mr. Putin. And the same goes for Chinese-owned infrastructure and goods. We actually have a deal with Xi. 60% of all rare earth materials are produced in China, and 90% is processed in China. 90% of the chemical ingredients for sedatives, antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, and low blood pressure medicines come from China. We are naive if we think the Communist Party will never use that power. Business leaders in Europe and America need to realize that the commercial decisions they make have strategic consequences for the security of their nation.
Wow.
Businesses need to be prepared for a wartime scenario and adjust their production and distribution lines accordingly.
Wow.
Because while it may be the military who wins battles, it's the economies that win wars. Over the past...
You see that? He's saying it. Get ready. Get your businesses ready. NATO is in the crosshairs. Russia has had enough. They will give Europe the war they want. London, Paris, Berlin, and Warsaw are the prime targets Washington, D.C. and New York City. Here is an animation showing what such an attack would look like from Russia into Europe. And this is the Orshink missile approximation flight time. 15 minutes to Berlin and Warsaw, 12 minutes to Warsaw, 15 minutes to Berlin, and about 25 minutes to London and Paris. That's how long it would take. France now authorizing Ukraine to use French Scalp missiles to strike inside Russia. So it's not just the U.S. who's authorizing and providing. It is now France. The Biden administration, this is an update from a couple days ago. The Biden administration is reportedly planning to transfer U.S. JSAM ballistic missiles to Ukraine for strikes on Moscow. JSAM ballistic missiles have a range up to 900 kilometers. They can strike near Moscow. Biden is working to start World War III before he leaves. And this is interesting. Sebastian Gorka, I'm sure you guys know who he is. I met him once. I met him at CPAC. He wasn't the most friendly guy to me. I'm not sure what his problem was. But he has now just been named as the Director of National Security Policy in the White House. And he says that Trump's strategy for ending the Ukraine war will include threatening Putin to provide Ukraine with exponentially more military aid. Now, I mean, I know the whole thing, like walk softly and carry a big stick, but is this really the angle that we need?
I'll give one tip away that the president has mentioned. He will say to that murderous former KGB colonel, that thug who runs the Russian Federation, you will negotiate now, or the aid that we have given to Ukraine thus far will look like peanuts. That's how he will force those gentlemen to come to an arrangement that stops the bloodshed.
I mean, is that the language we need to be using? I mean, they're already talking about, sending nukes. What else could we be sending? I want peace talks. I don't know what the conversations being had with Sebastian Gorka and President Trump about this, but that's the only indicator we have of what's going on behind closed doors. And it is quite terrifying. Now, here we have Tucker Carlson talking about Tony Blinken running the White House. Listen to this.
At NATO's direction, make no mistake, over 1 million Ukrainians dead now, or permanently maimed, an entire generation of young men wiped out, a country destroyed, and they're still trying to sell this thing. And then, of course, over the past few days, we've seen the madness that is unfolding in the White House, allowing long-range missiles to be used from Ukraine at NATO's direction. Make no mistake, anyone watching this knows that Ukrainians don't even know how to use these missiles. It's NATO that's doing it, of course,
that's what I just said.
Attacking inside of Russia. And then with add on top of that, the Biden administration now has okayed anti-personnel mines to be used, something they've long said absolutely we won't use. These are basically a lot of like the same pedal mines that are thrown into the ground in Donetsk and the Donbass region. And children go to the playgrounds and they find these little pedal mines that look like leaves. They pick them up and their arms are blown off or they're killed. And the Biden administration was absolutely against this. This was their stance. And now suddenly, within the past week, all of this has changed. So who the hell is running the White House? I mean, you've got, again, I know you're humble about this, but you've got amazing sources there. Like, Biden is not, who is running the White House? Like, who is our de facto president? Is it Antony Blinken right now? Is it Jake Sullivan? Who is doing this?
Well, if you'd asked me yesterday morning, I would have said Tony Blinken, who has been running it since the beginning. But now I would say Satan, because I really think that you've got, dark forces in charge. I mean, there's no justification for using anti-personnel mines in this conflict, which can't hope to be solved with anti-personnel mines, resolved in any way. The only effect of that move is to kill innocents, period. That's it. That's the only effect. And they know that. And so they're doing it anyway, because killing is the point. So it's evil. I think we should say that. I don't think it's a matter of defending democracy. The president of Ukraine is not elected. He's a dictator. He literally passed his term and kept serving. He's a dictator. And that country's shut down a Christian denomination, put priests in jail. Like, how many more markers of dictatorship do you need to call it what it is, which is totalitarian? So everything about it is horrifying. I'm so glad that you mentioned what's happening in the UK and France. There's the complicity of Western European countries in this. Really, I hope books are written about it. But there's something about a dying empire, collapsing demographically, totally pointless finance-based economy, no self-respect at all, nihilism rising. There's something about that mix, the final days of a dying civilization, that causes it to lash out in this kind of orgy of killing for its own sake. It's really the darkest thing I could. It's like you imagine Rome collapsing and the Vandals toppling buildings and having orgies in the streets and all that stuff. Really, it's the end of an empire is more like a kind of suicide, a kind of murder-suicide, where the formerly great power kills itself and then takes a lot of people out as it does. It's like more horrifying than I ever thought.
Wow. So that's where we're at, folks. I mean, they want to give nukes. They want to give Ukraine nukes. I mean, there's no other way to describe it other than pure evil. And again, I don't know how I feel about these types of negotiations that Sebastian Gorka is referencing here. I understand the walk softly, big stick thing, but Biden officials discussing giving nuclear weapons to Ukraine? No, thank you. At the same time, we have this.
Gobbled on. That ship's 1,100 miles. It takes 16.5 hours. Through it all, they stayed calm. They gobbled on and still gobbling. They stayed nice listening to their favorite music, which apparently includes the song "Living on a Prayer."
Yeah, we're all living on a prayer now. So he's there pardoning turkeys, at the same time authorizing nuclear weapons, or the talk of it is being had. The French doing their thing. This guy talking about telling businesses to prepare for war in Europe. Preemptive strikes against Russia should be considered, according to a NATO committee chairman. These people are out of their minds. And the United Kingdom and France are now also in talks to deploy troops to Ukraine. So the evidence is undeniable, folks. From NATO's secret war preparations to Biden's reckless nuclear gambit, the globalists are pushing us towards the unthinkable. And Tucker Carlson says it best: dark forces are controlling the White House, deliberately escalating tensions before Trump retakes office. So the question, patriots, that we need to ask is, are we witnessing the deep state's desperate attempt to trigger a global conflict to prevent Trump's return? Show your defiance against the warmongering elite with our new collection, the Mag Avengers collection, shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Every Mag Avenger understands that a strong America prevents war, and these exclusive designs let the world know where you stand. Limited quantities available. Don't miss out. So drop your answer to the question. Is this the last dying breath of the deep state before Trump takes office? Comment below.